In the ever-evolving luxury watch landscape, a notable shift has thrust independent watchmakers into the spotlight. Once in the shadows, these artisans now emerge as pioneers, captivating both seasoned collectors and newcomers alike. No longer confined by the considerations of expense or time that differentiate them from industry titans, independent watchmakers have become the ultimate expression of artisanal, conceptual, technical, and artistic ingenuity. Their creations weave narratives of dedication and passion, offering a departure from conventional mass production. Selecting an independent timepiece isn't merely a choice, it's an immersion into authenticity, individuality, and the true essence of craftsmanship. Join us as we explore the world of independent watchmaking, where each timepiece serves as a testament to unparalleled creativity, challenging norms, and inviting enthusiasts on a journey of distinctive horological expression. All right, Dan, this is your category. I know that you're building these beautiful watches for heavy metal fans. Talk about like the power of the independent watchmaker.
Oh, actually, it was pretty well explained in your intro too. We've emerged from a gentleman who brought back this resurgence named Paul Gerber in Germany. Paul is in the Guinness Book of World Records for making the most complicated timepiece ever created in the history of anything, and that was for Patek Philippe. So to show you what a ghost builder is, Paul for many years was a ghost builder. For all the big brands, when they needed some special model made, even the master watchmakers in their rooms at these big brands back then, they didn't even have the competence, or they wouldn't let them have that time because they needed them for other things, to build a limited series of 10 of these crazy, complicated micro machines, meaning the mechanics that's inside. Just back then, it was a race who can do something that's just hasn't been done before, to show off that brand's what they can do. Just like in making cars, just like you want a McLaren, it's the same thing. Paul broke out on his own, and he did an automatic system that had 3 miniaturized micro rotors. It's the same rotor system to say winds the watch in a Rolex, except there were 3 of them that for some reason they didn't hit each other when they were winding. And he put a little ad in the back of Horological Times that I saw, and it lit my fire and said, wow, you could like make your own watches and sell them? How? Because this is before the interweb. Like, how do you do that? How do you market it? You don't have a marketing team. I don't have, $40-50 million to get it out there. So once the internet came, that just exploded. All my friends that were ghost builders just said, wait a minute, why am I making him all that money? If I could slowly start buying machines and then fixing them up, maybe I only got to come up with $500,000 to $1 million worth of machines, and I can break out and I can go directly to the customer, and I can make my art with no boundaries, no boardroom to tell me I can't make this mechanism that I've been dreaming and I can't sleep for the last 3 years because it's a mechanism like my escapement that hasn't been done since 18 something, and it never worked back then. But I can miniaturize it for a wristwatch, and I can do a single impulse detent escapement, which is more accurate than any Swiss watch that there is, and it's too costly for a big brand to make. So that's what I do, and that's what a lot of my friends do. But we, just like my past music, which was thrash metal, I helped to bring a new form of music. Each one of us has a story, and you get to see our story online. You follow us. We're mainly on Instagram. That's what we talk about. So collectors fall in love with our struggles, with our story. It's not easy to do what we do. It's insurmountable. It's insurmountable in my country, that's for sure, because we don't have any watchmaking anything here, like zero. So each little independent guy has a story in his struggle, and he has a mechanism and a timepiece that represents him, just like he was painting a painting. And then the brands get bigger. He's not just one guy. Maybe he's doing well. Now he has 3 helpers because it's exploded so much that most of them are sold out for 5, 10, 15 years, easy. But we can only produce so much, and we put a cap on it. It's not about getting rich as we can get. Most of us, even who brands that want to be a little bit bigger, like a Voutilanen or a Crivia, they cap it around 40 or 45 watches or so. And there's a small team, one big building. That's it. It's quality over everything else. That's enough. Enough's enough money, if you know what I mean. Because after that, then you need big boardrooms, and it just gets all watered down to shit. And you got to create the supply and demand routine and branding, and oh, you can't have your Rolex Daytona because we can't make enough. Well, let me tell you, go to Switzerland. All they got to do is turn the dial up, and you can have as many Daytonas as you want. We don't do that. We take our time to build our timepiece, and mostly by hand, because we cannot buy the parts to make small quantities. We can't call Switzerland and say, I want 10 balance wheels, or I want 10 hairsprings, or I want 10 jewels. They don't even answer unless you buy 1,000 of everything. So we have to manufacture and have a facility here where I have a complete machine room on the other side there. There's massive Swiss machines. We got to go to school for CNC. We got to go to school for CAM, which is what programs CNC. CAD, we have to know how to run these old machines from the 40s and 50s that make dials and do the Geneva striping and build them. And it's a really cool thing to watch somebody's perseverance. Everyone becomes part of the family. The same as what thrash metal was in the beginning for us, Anthrax, Metallica, Slayer, and everyone, but all the record companies say your music sucks. It doesn't sound like everybody else. You don't fit in the box. Well, you know what? Independent watchmaking is exactly what thrash metal is. We don't fit in the box. But do you like our box?
I love the parallel. Gary, I know that your collection leans heavily towards the work of living artists and craftspeople. That includes independent makers. Share your kind of journey, like how the independents fit within your collection and what your thinking is.
Yeah, well, I mean, the journey, started really with friends and back, in ancient times, early 2000s, on online forums where we got exposed on a place called The Purists to independent watchmaking and people who were enthusiastic about the independent makers. And I, was very lucky. There was a guy named Tim Jackson who had a little store here in Northern California, and he was fanatical about the independents and introduced a lot of us to them. And so we got kind of an early start as a collector group here on the West Coast in meeting them. And Dan, you've heard me say this before: meet the maker, want the watch, right? Mm-hmm. It's that connection with their personal journey. I mean, I think Dan, you articulated extraordinarily well that it's art, right? People say, well, isn't Patek Philippe independent? Well, they're privately owned, but that's a different thing. Right? To me, independent watchmaking is when a person or a small group of people express their artistic vision in mechanical form. Okay, it's an act of self-expression. It's, as Dan says, it's often not really a business model. It can be, but often not. It's not a micro brand, which is a design-led exercise where you cut costs and get a cheap movement and market directly. It's art, right? And Patek at their high end, they make excellent watches. Lange makes excellent watches, but in a lot of ways, it's the difference between buying a Ferrari and buying a Picasso, right? Yeah, you buy the product of an enterprise versus buying the artistic output of an individual, and and to be, I mean, it's a self-flattering term, but to be a patron of those people who have had the courage to do that, especially when you're almost guaranteed to go broke. It's important. I think it's important for people who are enthusiastic about watches, to support living watchmakers. Mr. Dufour, he started in the 90s. He told us that he didn't bank a single dollar. He didn't save a single dollar in the bank until 2011. And so it wasn't that it wasn't a get rich quick scheme. So if you look at Dufour, or you look at some of the emerging newcomers like Recepi with a Crivia, or Peterman and Badat, or Hajime Asaoka in Japan, they're telling you something about themselves. and their vision. And to me, it's extraordinarily powerful. And I'm really honored to be able to own some of those watches and to know the people and to visit their ateliers and to see their creative processes, but also how they do the thing. You know, to watch Mr. Dufour put a bevel on a piece of metal, I'll tell the story really fast. I thought that he put it in a vise and kind of, do that. And I saw him do it, and he's holding the part in one hand, and he's got the file in the other hand. And I said, "Geez, isn't that awfully difficult?" I would think. And he said, "Look, if you're playing the violin, if you clamp the violin like this and you try to make the bow work, it sounds awful. But if you let the bow find the string, you can make beautiful music." And I thought, man, it still gives me chills down my spine. That kind of knowledge.
Like Dufour had his story. We mentioned him because he was an early person that was in this, like Paul Gerber. But then now, because of the internet, there's people all around the world that can be represented. The watch doesn't have to be from Switzerland. There's a gentleman like in Japan called Masahiro Kakuno. So to show you that it's all about the story and the impact someone from a small country like Japan can have, he decided, I'm going to make a watch before there was light bulbs. No CNC is allowed. I would literally use files, and eventually after the first one, the second one, the third one, the fourth one, I actually produce. It won't take me 2 years. They'll get faster. My techniques will get faster. And that's my art. So if you want the early ones, they'll be hacked to death. The finishing will not look nothing like Philip Dufour, because that's not his gig. His gig is, it's art. It's messy. That's me. It'll get better over time. And he had such an impact because he found an old Swiss machine that was a pantograph used back then to do lettering and stuff on coins or whatever it was. He wasn't even used in watchmaking. And he figured out a way that would make the main plates of the watch that all the jewels get pressed in, instead of using a jig boring machine, which is custom made for it, or a CNC machine. Now, the school in Switzerland that teaches watchmaking teaches on a pantograph, and they put a pantograph in a Swiss school because of the impact that one person's art and how he makes that art is made. That's the impact independent watchmaking can have, from that level to my friends who are still ghost building for other bigger independents and name brands. We're all over the place, and it's a wonderful thing to be part of. It's exploded. It can be costly, but you can also personalize your timepiece as you would when you order a McLaren or something like that. The structure is there. We can only bend so much because we've spent years making our mechanics a certain way, but it can be decorated a certain way for you, and not just engraved, but certain things can be really customized for that customer. And collectors really, really like that because, again, now it pulls on their heartstrings and it really feels very special to them. That not just nobody else has a watch like that. That it really is like it's theirs. Like wow, I couldn't believe that guy like did that for me. Like I mean, he had to like redesign his machine to do that for me. And that happens. And that's what art's all about.
I love the passion in your voices. I think I need to limit my discussions and exposure to Dan and other independents. Otherwise, my kids may never go to college. Let's go to segment 4.